Welcome back to Tony and Tina's Wedding, Creating a Theater Tribe, the podcast where we pull up a chair, pass the cannoli, and talk to the artists who helped turn a wild Italian wedding into a global theatrical family. I'm Larry, and I had the joy and occasional chaos of being the original director of this thing we somehow pulled off and kept alive for decades.
And I'm Gret. I joined the family out in Las Vegas, where the champagne flowed freely, the audiences came ready to party, and no two weddings were ever the same. I'm so excited for today's guest because honestly, this is Tony and Tina's royalty.
And I'm Concetta. I had the privilege of working the wedding across many cities, which means I've seen this show shapeshift more times than I can count. But there's one constant everybody talks about: the guy who kicked the doors in more than anyone.
Today we're joined by the original groom himself, the man who put on the tux, took the plunge, and defined what it meant to be Tony from the very beginning.
Before there were replacement casts, before there were multiple cities, before actors nervously asked, "So, how much improv is too much?" There was him.
Our guest helps set the tone for generations of actors. How Tony loves, how he parties, how he panics, and how he somehow survives his own wedding night.
He's an actor, a collaborator, and a foundational piece of this show's DNA. And for me personally, it's a full circle moment to get to sit down and talk about how it all began.
So, pull up a folding chair.
And get ready to meet the original Tony.
Please welcome Mark Nassar. Mark Nassar.
Yay!
Oh, yes. You
I was
look
so
fantastic.
excited for this, I popped a mint beforehand.
And Mark, you have had an amazing year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really an extraordinary year, but we want to talk today about starting back in what was it, 86, 85?
Yeah, I think the first show was in '85 at the American Legion Hall. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So think about how long that is now. That's what, 40 years? I mean, it's crazy.
Say, it's an anniversary year. If
Gee,
it was
It's 40,
85,
yeah.
then it's an anniversary
It
year.
is.
But it's crazy because it's just taken up so much of a part of my life because I was able to do all these different cities. And it was like I could never turn it down. It was too much fun. My agents would always go,
Thank God.
"Mark, you can't take off again." Because there I was in New York or Los Angeles trying to get gigs. But it was like, man, I can't. It's too much fun to go to a city and work for 3 hours, and then you have the rest of the time in the city. It's a new city
Yeah.
that you're in. You're being put up, you're being paid well. It was really something.
So, Mark, you did New York City, but then I know that I begged you to come to Chicago, and then I know you came to Boston.
Mm-hmm. San
I mean,
Francisco, Los
San
Angeles.
San
We also did Los
Francisco.
Angeles, yeah.
I mean, Los Angeles, but I mean, and then you also have directed the show.
In Aiken, South Carolina. That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was great too. But anyway, one of my best experiences was going to Chicago because I remember I was in New York and they said, "Oh, we're going to put you up." I'd never been to Chicago. They said, "We're going to put you up near the lake in an apartment." And I'm thinking, well, I live near the East River. It's not really a selling point. And then I got to Chicago in the summer and I walked down to Lake Michigan and it was like an ocean and a beach. And it was a 15-minute walk for me to get there. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah.
But Ro's family really made it for me, because Ro's family was old school, the last of the Mohicans, you know, the last group that of Italians in that neighborhood that were still like, and I'm sure you can find these pockets in all the cities, but Sunday dinners were the real deal. The whole neighborhood was there. The family, the neighborhood, they were just such big-hearted people. And I count them as dear friends still to this day. I talk to Ro's father on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Oh,
They were a treasure.
Yeah.
We were talking to Ro last week, the authenticity. I did a lot of different cities, and I would always go out into those cities and look for Tina's or try and find somebody, but not like that family.
I mean, I remember when Roro, I was sitting there to meet Roro for the first time. We were going to do a publicity shoot. I had just gotten into town. And when people are late, it just drives me nuts. You know what I mean? Like, as soon as it's 5 minutes late, I'm getting mad. It's just a thing, you know. And my wife says, you got to be somewhere a half an hour early, and it's annoying too. But I was there and I'm like, who the hell is this person that's going to be a half an hour late? This new person that's everybody's telling me is going to be so amazing. And then I was literally on the street having a cigarette. Her mother and her get out of the car, and her aunt. And they were walking across the street. It's like the opening of Reservoir Dogs, you know. And I was like, and the mother, who I adored, Suzanne, she was, she's, oh, that Mark, he just didn't like us in the beginning, and he gave us that dirty look. He was, and they play that forever. You know what I mean? But they turned out. I mean, I would go out. You know, I had a great time when I was in any city. I'd be out till 4 or 5 in the morning, but I would be at Sunday brunch or dinner or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it every week I could. That's how fun it was.
Yeah. And Boston, there was a great Italian community there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't get to know them as well because I came in at the last minute, so I wasn't there for the whole rehearsal process. And I remember I was staying at Father George's home. Remember Father George? He was a friend of Tony and Tina's wedding. And I don't know, he followed us wherever, but I said, I'm going back to Boston. He goes, well, stay at my place because I'm staying at some other place now. And it was like a little kind of chapel in there that I was staying.
I don't
But
remember that.
yeah, but I have still friends from there, Denise Fennel, Rachel
Oh,
McEnany.
yeah.
Are still dear, dear friends. Again, these experiences are amazing. And I also think what I really love about this show, because it's run so long, it's run so many places, that everywhere you have this show and it runs for years, these friendships are made and it's a community. Joey Suma used to always say too about New York, he never did Tony and Tina's wedding. He's a dear friend of mine. He's a funny guy. He goes, yeah, I'm the only Italian that never did Tony and Tina's wedding. Yeah, so I'm the only actor that didn't do Law and Order. So, it's okay.
Right.
But he said, yeah, more Italian Americans got their equity card through Tony and Tina's wedding than any ever.
I did.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Me too. So
Yeah, and you did the original New York as Tony, then you came back as Mr. Dunzio,
it was
which was so great. But I had many Italians who were in the cast say to me, like 2 years later, like, Larry, I need 5 weeks to ratify my insurance or whatever. Please give me the five. And I would always do it if I could. I mean, I'd
right.
always figure out a way because they would come in as black staff or whatever.
Oh yeah. No, it was amazing spot. And the other thing I always loved about Tony and Tina actors, and I just said it to my actors recently because we've done I don't know how many shows, a lot of shows now already. I go, when we went from Tony and Tina's wedding, and I would do the mayor's limo, and I would pick actors from Tony and Tina's wedding, and I'd get other actors from other places that I admired and liked. The Tony and Tina's actors were so consistent because they'd done the same show over and over and over and over and found new ways to make it real. They became professionals by doing the show so many times. So I always noticed that with mixed casts where I'd have some people that weren't in that cast who were very good, but they were not as consistent and as dependable.
Right. Well, the improv world, I think it takes a very special character because we had hardly nobody from the quote unquote Broadway or even the off-Broadway world come in to do the show. I mean, they were afraid of it,
Right.
and
Absolutely.
probably rightly so.
Absolutely, rightly so. And I mean, today you think about when we do shows in San Francisco, I don't do it at our show, it's Compton's, but I mean, you go to an immersive show in San Francisco and the audience is waiting outside being read a list this long of the restrictions of what they can and cannot do. And I mean, it's insane. And I'm like, well, they're going to get drunk and they're not going to care about those rules because they're not listening after the first two that you give them. And it's just such a weird way to start. But if I think about what went on at Tony and Tina's wedding, oh my God, we all would be arrested. You know what I mean? It was like, I'm exaggerating, but
Maybe.
Not really.
The audience was tough sometimes.
I mean, I remember in the beginning, and I shouldn't even be saying this, but when we were doing the show originally, it was more like a rock band. That's what I felt like. Hey, man, let's go. And it was crazy. And I remember at one point, we were smoking joints in the station wagon going to the church. So we're coming out smelling like smoke. And one time I'm smoking outside the car with the audience members there, and the agent for us rats me out, right? So I get in trouble. But then we had, one of the actors that was in the car said, you know what, I'm not comfortable with this. And that was it. And it was done. It was not this, we're going to report you and this is the end. I mean, it was like, come on, man. This is a show. And today, I just feel like a lot of times it's like, are we in a church? Are we creating a church? I believe there has to be safety. I don't think there should ever be any kind of sexual harassment. But sometimes it's like, let's have some fun too, because that's part of it. And it's just a different time. But I still go and do Tony and Tina's wherever we go. And it still has that feel, that spontaneity, that sense of fun. So
Yeah, you just did San Francisco, right?
yeah, that was pretty amazing. So anyway, let's enough about me. What do you think about me? You know what I mean?
No, I have a question. So, how many years did you play Tony? I have so many questions. Hang on, let me gather my thoughts. How many years did you play Tony?
He's still playing.
He's still playing Tony.
Yeah.
He is Tony.
Still playing Tony. Yeah. Sometimes in my life, I go, why am I being so sensitive and worried about this and that? I go, just be Nunzio. Just be Nunzio. Just have no conscience, have no guilt, and just run over people. But no, you can't do that. So I did a year, I think, in New York, a year or a little more than a year. Then I went to LA, and I think we did almost a year. I can't remember,
Yeah.
And then I think the next place I did it was in Chicago or San Francisco, So I played Tony for probably a couple years worth altogether in all the different cities and whatnot, I think. But Nunzio, I played for,
Longer than
Nunzio.
Tony?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, because I came in and played Nunzio in New York, and that was always, you could go and you could come back. That was the other great thing about that show, was like if you had another gig, you could go do the gig and come back. And that's what I'm trying to set up for our cast here. Like, hey, let's get a good team. We keep adding people, because a lot of times with these gigs, people have to have other jobs. So you get burnt out. And
Mark, you did Tony more than 2 years because you did Tony in Chicago, you did Tony in Boston.
Yeah, but you know what? Tony in Chicago was for about 3 months or 4 months at the most.
Is that it? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
It felt like it was a lifetime because there was so much going on there. And the city was so amazing. I love that city. I still do. I went back and did Johnny Boys there for 2 years. The show ran for 4, so I was back and forth, but I leaned on all those Tony and Tina's people, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially Marty.
God rest his soul.
God rest Marty's soul.
I love that guy. I mean, he was one of the greatest improvers there was. I put him in the top 5, 10 people of improvers of all the Tony and Tina people. So I hired him for Johnny Boys to play the attorney, who's like the MC. He's like a Vinnie Black characters, kind of. And, older actors, you can't give them notes. I mean, it's just impossible. You give them a note, you get a 10,000 word reply in an email, Hey, Marty, I don't think that joke was, right for this. We're not doing shtick, all right? So let's change it. Mark, you gotta laugh. That's what you need. That's what you need. And it would go on. And I mean, it's crazy, but Marty worked. You put him in a room and he just worked, you know what I mean? Till the very end, every table. So, yeah, he was a special person.
He was, and he could get away with a lot because I remember when my brother came to see the show in Chicago. So Marty was standing behind him. I was sitting at the table across from him, and Marty said, "Oh my God, I recognize you." And I thought he was talking to me, and I said, "Of course you know me." And he goes, "No." And he was looking down on my brother's head. He said, "No, I recognize the top of this gentleman's head." In other words, he had been giving him head. And I mean, right,
Yeah.
Mark?
Oh,
I
no,
mean, that
yeah.
was him. And he just moved on to the next thing. So you couldn't even like arrest him because he was gone already.
Yeah. And he
Drop
made
the
it.
bomb and walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you mean? Well, I wasn't talking about that, but people loved him.
But anyway,
Well, listen, just real quick, we'd go out to this place called Martini Ranch. We'd go over there and Marty would sit back. That's when you could smoke in and you'd be sitting there with Marty and he'd be like getting drinks off of you and then smoking and then putting the ashes in the beer drains. Like, I mean, Marty,
yes.
could you please, you know what I mean? He was that character, he was kind of like Kevin Alexander, who wasn't as crass as Marty could be, but that just personality, it just comes out, it's a charisma, a personality, whatever you want to call it. But you're like, I don't believe you just did that. Like me traveling cross country with Kevin Alexander, I was like, no, you didn't just do that. You didn't just go into the boot factory warehouse in Texas, which is like a square mile, and come out with snake pearl white boots because you know what I mean? It was like pearl skin white boots. I'm like, that's what you got. You went in there for fucking 2 hours. That's what you get.
So when you were going to do Tony and Tina's wedding in LA, you drove across country with Kevin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I was to write a road movie, this would be
Yeah.
hysterical. I mean, it starts out where when we're leaving, David Dundera, he bought me a nice, beautiful Aeropostale eye sunglasses, here for a trip. It was like one of a beautiful gift, right? And we had a U-Haul on the top of his Camaro, like little U-Haul box. And Kevin kept going, "Hey, check that box. It's loose," and looking out. "No, it's loose. Check it again." And then one time I checked it and the glasses go flying out, So I
Oh.
lost the glass. That was the beginning of the trip. It spiraled from there, but we had a blast, of course. But it was like, we're in Texas. I want to buy a gun. I go, "Why do you want to buy a gun?" He goes, "Because you can." I go, "It's a good thing you didn't buy it because I would have shot him with it before the show was over." One more on that. It's one of my favorite bits. We're on the last leg of our trip. And he's got this hat that he's wearing across country. It's bamboo Bernie's, it says on it, and it's like, so we got to go into every place with this bamboo Bernie's hat. But I'm not going to say anything to him because that's his personal preference. But I was like, this is ridiculous. So we're driving through the desert of California. It's our last leg. I'm sleeping. He's driving. Car stops abruptly. "What happened? What's going on?" He goes, "My hat flew out the window." I'm like, "Oh shit. Thank God." But anyway, it's too late now. But I know what it meant to him. So we're out in the desert along the side of the road. The trucks are, I'm like, we're not going to find this thing. And then he goes back and goes, "I found it." I go, "Where was it?" "It's in the back seat." I threw up his hat into the back seat. I'm glad you didn't get that gun, okay? Because we had to go to Graceland, of course, not my idea, but his. We went to this house in Memphis that was an after hours club. It was really an amazing trip. And I always think of that with the Tony and Tina people. It was like the Cannonball Run, right? The whole cast was driving cross
Oh
country.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We drove,
And we,
Juan and I drove across.
yeah, and we used his car to enter the show, the Camaro. You know how we used to enter with a car.
Um,
Yeah.
We used his Camaro to enter the
Yeah.
space. and we pull right in. It was really a blast, a blast.
Yeah, that was very magical. I mean, to me, nothing ever compared to New York, but LA was great. And being able to adjust it to be in that space,
Oh God.
I mean, forget it.
Opening night, we thought we all had made it, because all these celebrities were there. I mean, it was like, we're done, we're here, I'm Kirk
Like,
Douglas. And I remember calling my parents from that opening night, really excited because they couldn't be there. But I went, Mom, Dad, you're not going to believe this, but Kirk Douglas, Rod Steiger, Anthony Perkins, Estelle Getty, Jerry Vale. Jerry Vale? I'm saying, like, oh, Christ, this is who they really care about. I remember Faye Dunaway being online for the dollar dance, right?
Oh my
yeah,
God.
Sitting there, like, I got 10 people in front of her, right? And I'm like spinning them off, one turn gone, one turn gone,
Yeah.
boom, boom. And I see Faye Dunaway with the stick lipstick, putting lipstick on before she comes up, right? And I'm like, wow, okay, next. So she's like a foot taller than me, and she comes up and she goes, Mark, why did you marry Tina? I said, well, if you called me like an hour ago, I would have been out of here. It was, I remember taking Kirk Douglas around the neck as we pulled up, and Entertainment Tonight was there, and I had my arm around kind of on his shoulder. He was a sweetheart, so was his wife. And I go, hey, nobody can say Tony Nunzio doesn't have friends in show business. And then I went, Kirk, the favors are starting to pile up. You know what I mean? We just did all that stuff. It was a license to kill. That show was a license to really, let go of your inhibitions and just have fun, right?
yeah, and you knew how to do it because I mean, even in what you're talking about now, I mean, making friends even with Kirk Douglas, I mean, all of these people that we've come in touch with has just been extraordinary. But you also had a gift for that, Mark. A lot of people were much more apprehensive. You would just go for it.
Well, I remember
So,
being in the apartment building that we were all in, Kevin, Eli, me, John, but there was about 4 or 5 of us. And
right.
everybody was a nervous
Yeah.
wreck. They're in the bathroom, they're coming out. I'm smoking a half a joint. I'm like, guys, don't worry, I'm pitching today. You don't have to worry. You know what I mean? We just, I got this. It's like, but so I never was nervous about it. I don't think I was ever nervous about Tony and Tina's wedding, ever. I don't know why. I mean, I could get nervous about other shows, especially in the beginning. But to me, the aspect of it that was improvisation was unbelievable. To me, it was just like I said, a license to kill, license to go out and have fun, you know. And I would get in trouble for it, because I push it too far. So I know that about myself, but they're great stories after it's all over,
Yeah, but
it's like,
you
Yeah.
had a responsibility too, though, that was unique to you in that you had to set the bar incredibly high so that everybody else could join you up there. You know what I mean? The show
Yeah.
has to be up there. You know what it's like when it's not, when people don't get it or they're new or like
well,
hesitation or being careful and cautious. Doesn't work. It doesn't, the party's
well,
not there.
absolutely. And I think the only time I would really get resentful would be when I see actors not working. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's like, come on. If there's always like, as you know, in every cast, there's 4 or 5 people that really work a room. They don't stop.
Mhm.
I think of a number of people, Concetta, you're one of them, of course. And then
Oh,
I see like Denise Fennell was a person that would just always work the room.
She did.
Al Tuner in our cast, you'd always look up, he's somewhere working a table. And those people really made it. And so that gave the opportunity for other people to not be as active around the room, but have special moments at a table. Jack Friss was great. He'd sit at a table, for 20 minutes, and it'd be a different experience for everybody.
mhm.
So, in those ways, it was a really special experience. I'll share this one because it's embarrassing to me that I did this, but it also is a great story. I was in Las Vegas and for 3 days, and I don't think I slept. I get back and they go, "Oh, John's sick and the understudy is really not ready. Can you come in and do the show?" And I'm like, "Oh man, guys, I've had no sleep, blah, 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 blah. I can't, and okay, all right, I'll do it. All right." So I go to the guy who's playing Barry, who really did sell weed for real, and I go, "Hey, I hope you have a real joint on you because I need one to get into this." It's a terrible thing to say, but it's like to me, if you post on a joint, I'm like in Tony. So I'm sitting there and have the nerves of it, all the little paranoids that you would have getting married. It worked, right? So for some reason, we don't smoke before the ceremony, so we have the ceremony, which was outdoors. It was under a little canopy. And then between the ceremony and the reception hall, I go, let's go now. We don't have that much time. So we're sitting in front of the Park Plaza, which is down in like drug infested MacArthur Park, which is across the street, passing a joint back and forth, right? And an unmarked car pulls up and wheels up to us. "What are you doing?" And I'm like, smoking a joint, and I didn't think much of it. Well, they jump out and they search us and they find the fake Coke that's on Barry and it's in a bag like this.
Oh no.
So we're like, "Oh shit," right? So we're sitting there handcuffed on the street, right? And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'll never get out of this one. I'm cooked here, man. This is bad news," right? Out comes Kevin Alexander. "Hey, these guys are, they're in a show." I'm like, "Kevin, get the fuck out of here." He goes back in, right? So, so then, thank God, we had undercover cops moonlighting, and they would come, and they came out, and they're laughing. They see me, ha 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 ha. Ha. I'm like, "Hey guys, the joint is real. I'm not gonna lie to you, but the Coke is fake." That's what I was telling them the whole time. We got cops in there, they'll verify that's part of the show. And they came out and they let us go. But in the meantime, inside the reception hall, bridesmaids are crying for real, you know,
For
and,
real.
it's like I'm getting dirty looks from everybody. All the Girl Scouts are in there, like. And I'm sitting there and we're going nuts, right? And so I feel horrible. I mean, it is pure stupidity. So during the toast, I get up and I do a toast that in a roundabout way apologizes for what I'm doing, you know. What I did. Guys, sometimes they mess up, blah, 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 blah. And, I do my speech and I sit down and I go to Nancy, who's playing Tina. I go, "You still love me, right?" Or something like that. As friends, you know what I mean? As people that do love each other, "You still love me, don't you?" She goes, "Until the show is over." And I was pissed at that because it's like, okay, all right, you're going to be that, right? And then it's just the rest of the night. I mean, the gift table, like,
Oh my God,
Oh,
I can't imagine.
when she was like throwing shit at me, like for real, I picked up a chair and was ready to throw. I mean, it was insane. Again,
that was a big gift table. There were a lot of big gifts on there
oh
too.
my God, that show was over the top. I mean,
It sure was. Mark, I think that you're talking about when people were consistent with performing night after night after night after night, it really strengthened what they did and they could face anything.
That's like one of the first things I think we all learned joining Tony and Tina's is that no matter what happens, keep going. Use it and keep going. So even it's like hilarious. Even the arrest like came into the show. It's
oh
like
my God. I mean,
literally anything could happen at Tony and Tina's, and this show will continue.
I'm like sitting there watching people cry for real. I go, guess what? I'm not a drug cartel. You know what I mean? I smoke a joint. You know what I mean? So I got resentful. And then I remember calling Joe Cochran, who's my best friend. I was going, hey, Joe, you're not going to believe what happened. Blah, 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 blah. You know, Joe's reaction? Boy, I'm glad I wasn't there. I'd be with you. That was, that's the difference, right? I mean,
That image of you guys like in the tuxes, handcuffed on the curb. I mean, like that's the poster for Tony and Tina's.
I mean, that's the real wedding stuff there.
Right.
Kevin came and got me, and I like looked out there and I was like, I'm gonna go back in, okay? I knew if you couldn't get out of it, there was no getting out of it. You know what I
Right,
mean?
the
It's
show
like
would have ended. Yeah, I don't know who we would have brought in. I mean, I think Neil. No, who was the understudy? I can't remember.
Neil Monaco. Yeah, we dressed Neil Monaco, who did not fit into the tux. I remember putting him in that tux, getting ready, and we were playing music. I was like, play it, play another song. Let them dance more.
Yeah, that
Oh
was
God.
one of the crazy. I remember in New York, one time the lights went out. I don't know if you remember that, Larry, but it was not like a circuit breaker. It was something more. It was like a brownout and it was bad, right? So
Do.
I'm sitting there, gonna keep going with everybody. Hey, I'm out in the room working. Yeah, yes, of course, the Vitalis didn't want to pay for a real place. I, do whatever you're doing, work in the room. And I'm looking around, and it's like, it's Moira and I in the room. Where's everybody? Right. So then some of the guys, they decided to leave the room to help fix it. Right. There was other people chanting Nam Yoho Ranking Yo in another room. I'm like, then I start praying to my God, don't let those lights come on. They can't be right about this. They can't be right. It was just this crazy so stuff. I mean, I think that's the only time the show didn't go on. I think we actually didn't, the lights never did come back on. It was
Wow.
but it was just those crazy times. I remember, when you talk about the nun, right? Elizabeth Herring, like the sweetest person in the room. And James Altuner, who was playing Dominic, he's playing a macho dude, tough dude. He's a good actor, but he's not that dude. You know what I mean? He's a gentle guy. So poor Elizabeth, because these people would freak out. I mean, the girl who played Madeline didn't get sexually harassed because everybody was afraid of her. She was oh, I'm not going near her.
Yeah.
But the nun, oh my God, they were messing with her. And so one time this knucklehead on the dollar dance is like smothering her with his arms like all around her during the dollar dance. And I see Elizabeth's face like, I'm in trouble here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at James Altuner, who's their boyfriend, and I go, is he gonna come in here or is he gonna be me? You know what I mean? I mean, I was closer to it, but I was like, okay, I'm going in. And there was also the license back then of taking that guy and just ripping him a new asshole in every way, and it was okay. You know what I mean? I remember with Tina, going to tables and we'd get people that were the types we were playing at the show, and now you got your hands full because they're not messing around, and they're going, hey, look, that's your wife, man. She looks like this or that. And they would say really rude things. And I'd be like, motherfucker, fuck you, because I could go do that. And it was just like, fuck you, you asshole. Look at who you were. I mean, it was just like open season, nothing like we get today. I mean, those original shows, we were challenged in a way. And for my part, I mean, I wasn't a New York City kid, but I was raised in a tough kind of town in Poughkeepsie. It would sound funny that you say that, but it was rough. You know what I mean? You were in the streets, two family houses, and I was prepared for that more, for that kind of thing. Whereas our original cast, as compared to following casts, were acting those parts and they were brilliant. I mean, their imaginations really created the uniqueness of all those characters. But later on, when we had Patrick Buckley and all these other types that were from the city, so they were the types already. It was a stronger force as far as that stuff goes. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Sharon Angela.
Sharon Angela.
I was afraid to give notes sometimes to some of them.
Yeah, but what are you talking about? I was looking, like, okay, yeah, I did that. But it's funny because I'm dealing with something about the Tony and Tina people that I can't explain it. But we didn't have, like, every show I've done since then has had this point where, the show's going on long enough, and then everybody starts getting a little sour. You know what I mean? And it's like they bring their problems to the show. I mean, it's not that it didn't happen there, but overall, those casts were led by really good people. You know what I mean? Nancy and I were hard workers. We were a good example of what should go on. Patrick Buckley and Justine, they were just real
Oh, yeah.
solid people. And it really led from the top. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you got to have a great Tony and Tina. They got to have a good attitude. I personally don't like leading. I'd rather be an actor in it. I don't like being a producer. I don't like being a boss because I work really hard when I do a show and I expect it from other people and I don't have the patience that I should have.
I think that's the definition of leader, though.
Right. Yeah, but you're leading when you're acting, you can be an example, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey man, you could say, hey, get off this guy's back. He's producing a show. He's got 19 million things he's worried about.
Right.
He can't just be everything to you. But I really did admire the Tony and Tina cast over the years. I think they really had wonderful times and became wonderful friends. I think people can say, with these immersive shows, but particularly Tony and Tina's Wedding, a long running show, where they remembered as one of the greatest times of their lives, the most fun time. And I think that's the gift of this show as much as anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And so many people I know from other companies, I'll reach out to them and talk to them. And of course, they're talking to me about that because they were in that show, but it was a highlight in their life. And, typically a wedding is a highlight in somebody's life, but in this was the production of the play. And it was great. And the thing is, I think that when we went out to do other shows, a lot of times we did cast on the nose because you wanted that flavor in there.
Yeah.
But when you got a good actor who was also somebody who was on the nose, like, I mean, Ro doesn't think of herself as an actress, but she got it up every night to be able to do that and perform.
She was a pro in her own right. You think about a person like Sharon Angela, who I just adore, and I put her in any show that she's available. There's a person that comes to a show and wants to do more than just act. We did the mayor's limo, and she played the prostitute. I mean, Sharon's going to do your costume. She's going to set up the dressing room. She is going to be there for you 100%. And that kind of camaraderie is so amazing. And I think Concetta is a prime example of this. There's something about the Tony and Tina crew. They've watched something independent happen, right? It's independent. We're going to put the show on. We're going to put the show on. And that everybody has an idea. Christopero's doing the Gabon produce. This one has a podcast. This one's going to put a show together. They're going to make it. It's like, I love that feeling of, hey, you know what? You can put the show on. You just have to be, marketing. You got to do everything, but you can see that it worked. Maybe for me it was a bad thing because I feel like every show is Tony and Tina's Wedding. Okay, let's do the showcase. Let's try this. Let's go that. And you move on those steps up the ladder. Johnny Boys was a prime example of that, going into a city with about $10,000 and putting on a show that ran for 4 years because you're doing everything. But you're also staying in a place that might not be the best place. You're devoted to this show. And I think people have learned that in Tony and Tina's Wedding. Here's a great story too. I mean, there's so many. I should really write a book about it because
You should.
I
Oh my God,
remember
yes.
I remember going to Chicago And one of the producers was the Calabrese family, Kurt Calabrese. He was the sweetest guy you'd ever met, but he was in a gangster family, and his father was Frank Calabrese, who was a notorious gangster.
Yeah.
And there was the family secrets trial based around them, and that was later on. And I remember they wanted to have the first year birthday for Kurt's daughter, right? And it was like a bar mitzvah. And they had it at the Tony and Tina's face. The kid's name had a different cake for each letter. You know what I mean? And there was magicians, and there was like, I was like, what is God's name is going on here? One person, Vic, he was a bartender then. Yeah, and he goes to me, listen, my godfather is a guy who stole the Marlboro diamond out of a jewelry store in London. His name's Jerry Scalise. And he goes, he's really interested in writing a movie about this. And I'm like, yeah, sounds good to me. Let's meet, and da 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 da. So Jerry comes in and he's like not what you expect in a gangster. He's a very articulate guy, but a gangster, you can see that. And he goes, well, I said, what I need is a place to stay in Chicago, a car to drive around, and then we'll split everything from there. Well, this guy tells me a whole different story that he wants to tell, which is crazy. And he's still one of my dearest friends today. And I mean, we've been through it. I've been visiting him in jail. I've picked up friends out of jail that are supposed to go to a halfway house, but I'm driving them to Chicago. I mean, it's a whole other going down the road. That's how I found the place for Johnny Boys. He was in jail, and I went to visit him, and I walked down the street, and I found Bonavino's restaurant right down the street. We had a film of him getting out. It's a 3-minute walk. So all these things come out of this one little play. Some people say to me, like, oh man, it was different back then. Now everybody's really kind of uptight. And I go, no, that's the way it's always been. I was in the drama department, but I was also on the football team, so I had these both things going. And I always thought that the drama department folks, we're law-abiding citizens. They're good people. You know what I mean? They're not like, hey, let's find the craziest fucking situation you can and go live in it for a while. That's not what they do. You know what I mean? They have pizza movie night on Friday nights. They're going to see every Broadway musical there ever was, and it's kind of its own fraternity, sorority, whatever you want to call it. And that's the way it is today. I have performers that do drag performances. They're used to that kind of nightlife. I'm not the one to regulate them. I try, but my director's like, no way, that can't happen. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, drama major, you're in charge. I can walk away. You know what I mean? So, in those respects, it's not good. It's good to find that middle that you're being daring, but you're not putting people in bad situations because it does become an issue. You're not in a rock band. You know what I mean? You might think you're in one, but you're not. You know what I mean? You're in a theater department on some level.
Yeah, I have a friend, and he
Oh,
used to say the original Tony and Tina was so sexy. And it was like that rock band kind of sexy because it was daring and people were smoking fake joints and real joints, I'm sure, in the bathroom.
yeah, the dance floor felt
Yeah.
like it was going to fall. You know what I mean? I mean, I went to a party at Carmelita's, and that's how we found Carmelita's. It was some East Village crazy party my friend had. And I go, man, look at this place. We couldn't decorate that. The decorations of Carmelita's was just
Oh,
it was more Latin than it was Italian, but it was perfect for what we were doing. It was almost too much, and we
it
didn't
was
decorate it.
yeah.
My God.
Randall Throp did an amazing job over Gus's, but that place was, built over years.
You could not set design Carmelitas because
No.
people would say, yeah, it's ridiculous. But it was just like layer of years and years and years.
Well, I
How
would
early on did you know, like in your heart, this is gonna go on for as long as we want it to? Like how early on did you know it was that special?
Well, I'll say this, that when we were in rehearsals the first time, This was before Larry came on. We didn't know how to rehearse the damn thing because without the audience, it's like a dead piece. It's just dead.
Yeah.
And so we were like going, maybe this isn't a good idea. That's what I was thinking. This might not be a good idea. But the first show that we did, and it was, to me, it was so magical. People loved it so much that from that point on, Joe Cochran, who played one of the groomsmen, because we couldn't find actors to do it because they didn't understand what it was. I knew then that we had something. I didn't know it was going to run 19 years, but it was like, Joe, that poor guy didn't have a day where I didn't go, hey, man, we just throw out a number. All we need is 25,000. All we need is 25,000. Joe, that's all we need. And God bless him, Joe, who wasn't a producer, so he didn't know what you should have when you're producing, put it up. And I think we knew right away it was going to be huge. I thought it was going to be huge. Nobody could predict it would go on this long. That first show was really just us going through the ritual of a wedding and improvising around it. There was not an ending. I mean, Larry came in and tried to focus things. Mark, you need to write that speech at the end. And that's when it became more writing, based rather than improv based. I mean, we would come in at the end, I'd come in at the end, and the ending was different every time. It was the same kind of thing, but it wasn't solid written down. So we were just going by the rituals of a wedding. And I think a wedding, because everybody knows how to behave at a wedding or knows what's coming, that's why it works so well with the improv and the immersive structure.
Yeah.
So yes, I would like to talk about the original cast and what they came up with and how they came in and the stuff that they did. And there was so many wonderful things about that too. Well, thank you. I know I get going and I don't, I don't know if anybody else is supposed to talk, but thank you very much. I do love this. It's a big lift for me and I really appreciate it. And I really should write a book about it because this immersive experiences are like,
Please.
Each one's a book in itself.
You could tell it's wrapping up because you see my face. The station wagon, was that yours?
Well, it was. The station wagon I was working at a real estate agency in Queens, and they had given me a station wagon so I could canvas out in Long Island instead of just a city. Anyway, I said to the dad, who was one of the loveliest guys in the world, I said, Dad, yeah, you know what? We could really use a car to enter. This was stuff I loved. I mean, anything like that I loved. And I go, we could really use this car because I watched the car anyway. I brought it back home. I parked it in the city. And this guy just said, yeah, go ahead. No worry about insurance, no nothing. It was decorated, painted, it didn't matter. I mean, these are different times.
Yeah.
My mother wouldn't let me borrow her car, out of high school. But Mr. Diana, go ahead, Mark. You're doing a great job for us. Go ahead.
Didn't even ask for his name in the program or anything.
Nothing.
Amazing.
And I remember being in the office when Daily News came out, and it was like, a full page Tony and Tina's wedding in the Daily News, and I went, I've made it. Yeah, that's where that car came from.
Yeah, because we've had a lot of guests mention the car already. They're like, we think it was Mark's. They don't remember. So we wanted to
It was
clear that for the record.
One quick real thing. In San Francisco, this guy, Rolando, and in San Francisco, they totally cast the types. One guy was a bookie who played Barry. Another guy was like a leg breaker, Rolando, who played and he had an Eldorado, like an 80-some Eldorado. Yes. And they weren't using it for the show. And I came in after David Dundaran. I go, hey, man, we got to use this car. Joe, can you give the guy $25 to use the car? Okay, Mark. I go, I'm telling you, these are the things that people remember. So I got these guys. They all look like gangsters. And I go, all right, this is what's going to happen. You're going to come down Post Street, and you're going to pull up in front of the church. And when you get out, look for somebody that's not there. Okay. So you're really looking for somebody, right? When they're not there, you nod to Barry. Barry opens the car door and I'll get out as Tony. All right. So the guy's got Rags to Riches, Tony Bennett's Rags to Riches from Goodfellas blasting out of the fucking car. And he's flying down Post Street, boom, the hills. I'm like, maybe this wasn't a good idea. Or maybe this was another one of your ideas. So he flies down, bang. He pulls up to the curb like with a screech, right? There's like already 70 people out there waiting for the show to start. And they do it. They're looking around. They look great. They nod. I get out of the car. Hey, and the place goes crazy. And they went, oh, wow, man. So the next day I go, guys, do it exactly the way you did it yesterday. Perfect. Perfect. Da, 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 boom, boom. So squeals up to the thing. They get out of the car and go, hey, the audience cheering for them, and I'm still in the back seat. So, so I get out of the car. I go, hey, how you doing, guy? Come here, everybody. I got to talk to you. Yeah. By the way, that's my entrance, okay? Not yours.
Tony and Tina's wedding.
Yeah, the car I love the car. Every time they cut a little detail out, it takes away from what goes on. I mean, originally, you're doing the show in Soho in a chapel that was created, and people went, 2 miles away to the American Legion Hall on 14th Street. And people said, I remember saying to me, this is crazy. They're not going to want to do it. I go, that's what they do at a wedding, and that's what they're going to talk about most. My wife says, you can't serve pancakes in the diner. Mark, it's the health department. It's this. No, the pancakes is what people, not that's all they remember, but they remember the pancakes.
Oh, no, they remember the pancakes. They were good.
Yeah. So, anyway, but yes, I'm happy to do this again. I really enjoy this conversation. It brings back such great memories.
Mark, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Really
Bye,
appreciate
Mark.
you all.
So much.
Yes.
Tony and Tina's Wedding, Creating a Theater Tribe is a production of Virtual Arts. If you like this episode, please make sure to like, subscribe, and give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And join us over on Instagram to see photos and archival materials related to the episodes. Please join us next time, where our guests will be the original Mrs. Vitale, Susan Varon, and Uncle Louie, Jay Harron.